everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of our Beyond Data podcast. Today, we are here with Tomer Elias to talk about a topic that's near and dear to my heart around AI bias within the LGBT community. So really excited to have you here, Tomer. Can you give us you kind of have your hands in a lot of pots and you kind of do a lot of different things. Can you give us an idea of who you are and how you got here today?
Sure. So first of all, I'm Tomer. I'm based in New York. Just relocated recently from Tel Aviv, from Israel. My professional life, I'm a product manager. I'm the director of product management at BigID. That is a startup that helps enterprise organizations to comply with privacy regulations and keep their sensitive and personal data safe. On my more of a personal level, I'm part of the LGBTQ community. I'm also a board member of an organization, an NGO organization, LGBTQ, an organization that helps LGBTQ employees to find their next career path in the tech companies and also allow other organizations, companies to be less biased and empower their LGBTQ employee in a way that will retain them and really unleash their true capabilities in the workplace. So I do that and that. I call it my day job and gay job. And I'm happy to be with you today to speak about this important topic.
Great. Love to have you here. It sounds like such a gratifying thing to be doing with the LGBT work. That sounds really fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
Good. So do we want to kick it off? Go ahead, Sophie. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, we were going to talk about the title, bias and AI bias in particular, we know, and how that's impacting the LGBTQ plus community. So I think the first thing actually is to discuss what bias looks like in AI, what we mean by bias in AI, because of course we're talking about the LGBTQ plus community. There is a lot of bias in everyday life. But when we're talking about AI bias, we're talking something a little bit more specific.
Mm-hmm. So let's start with bias in AI generally, and then drill down a little bit to the LGBTQ community. When it comes to building AI algorithms or AI solutions within a product, it's crucial to actually make sure that the data sets, the actual information that you are building the algorithm with, is not biased. It's diverse as it is. So you could see solutions out there that were built in the past that used data sets, examples that are not really diverse, and actually produced a solution that is biased. The more, if you provide quality information and quality data that is diverse, you get a better solution.
Partly because the lack of diversity in the data is partly because simply we didn't used to collect that data. In fact, a lot of the time we still don't.
Yeah. So people are biased, right? When they are starting to think about building a solution, an AI solution, and they are not taking it into consideration that kind of notion of making sure that the examples that I provide the machine is not biased, the outcome will be biased. And you could see that on researchers that tried, if we're talking not just about LGBTQ, but researchers that try to find a solution for a cure or medical solution, they would test it mostly on whatever test subjects they had, or information about test subjects that would be mostly male, right? So same goes to AI bias around LGBTQ. When it comes to different subjects in life, it could be work, it can be medical, it can be also entertainment. All those subjects can be prone to bias if you are not taking under consideration the LGBTQ community when you are building that kind of a recommendation or AI solution.
Yeah, and to me, it's almost like kind of two different things. One is like the actual data, which I think, kind of starts to push on some privacy issues if people don't want to share about their sexual orientation or their, their gender journey, right? And so there's that. And then there's like, I think the idea of actually having that community inform the AI or pressure test the AI to say, hey, this is biased in this way, and actually identifying those things. And those are, because you can't even see the bias if you don't have the data and you don't have people actually pressure testing it, which is, I think, probably the majority of systems currently.
Yeah, it's the same as you could think about how the HR community really advanced with overcoming bias when it comes to recruiting and maintaining personnel. They are going through sessions and educations and getting certificated about it. I think that also AI developers, people that are in charge on building those solutions, can go through the steps or the process of getting more knowledgeable about people and bias, and by that really building solutions that are less biased or taking into account those to diversify the information.
Yeah. Do you think that sometimes in just sharing that information, because people in this community can be targeted for oppression, it's difficult, right? I imagine, to want to freely share this information, particularly if you don't know how it's being used. I imagine that that's a very personal sort of thing for people to negotiate when they're faced with the moment of, oh, do I share this information or not?
Yeah, that's correct. And a lot of times the question is, why do I need to share it, right? You could see how sometimes sharing that data or helping the algorithm to become better, for example, with Netflix, telling the algorithm, hey, I like this story about two LGBTQ couple or something like that, you actually annotate the algorithm and let them know that you would like to see more of that, and actually the algorithm become more personal and less, you could see, biased or showing you something that you do not like. But when it comes to registering to something, we all are not do not really want to expose those things of our lives, right? It can be about the fact that you are LGBTQ, but it can be other things that you maybe do not want to expose. But as part of that, you are actually creating examples that are more biased, right? Because you are not allowing those people that are building the solutions to really know that kind of piece of information about you. So it's a kind of a rope that you should walk up on and understand whether it's more beneficial or not.
Yeah, absolutely. The very biases that make you nervous of disclosing your personal information are the things that you need to disclose said personal information in order to prevent and improve. And it's this absolute dichotomy of, I don't want to share because, but I need to share for exactly the same reason that I don't want to.
Yeah.
Oh, what a conundrum it is.
But you could see, I mentioned places around entertainment and also around marketing. Today, for example, as a LGBTQ person that moved from Israel to New York, sometimes I would like to get that kind of marketing that is directed to me, right? I would like to know about a show or a content or a product that would be beneficial for me because it actually speaks to what I need. But on the other way around, I do not want those, for example, Facebook and other social media to actually start to know all of that about me, because they may use it in a wrong way. So how can we make sure also, when we are building something that is not biased, how can we make sure that we keep that data or sensitive information in a lawful way, and also remove it when it's not needed anymore, right? How we make sure that the organizations or the products that we use actually keep our information safe and secure.
Indeed. And, obviously European GDPR, special category data manifestly made public. That doesn't just mean you've hit a like on an LGBT post.
Yeah.
It's, but the algorithms do take that into account. Well, on the other hand, this isn't a bad thing always, as you said yourself. You like having things directed to you. It's that wanting to be able to pick and choose. Who knows who makes comments about it? And let's face it, social media has a trust issue.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The other thing, of course, on that wanting to have some control over how it's shared is once it's used in learning data for a model, presumably that's it. It's used in the model, that you can't just remove it.
Yeah.
So actually, there are ways. After you use the data, you can anonymize it, right? You can eliminate the data set and not keep it anymore, because the algorithm actually already been tweaked and changed. So you can define retention policies, and actually, if you do it correctly, it will be beneficial also for making sure the data is not will not leak, right?
Sure, where you're still gaining the benefits, like of, I know even my son, who's in the LGBTQ community, he benefited greatly from social media, certain select social media sites being able to give him material that made him feel like more emotionally supported. And so he could gain that benefit. But what you're saying is that if you have the proper data removal systems, that doesn't mean that later somewhere else it pops up and he's exposed in places he doesn't want to be, or what have you. And so it kind of, that's kind of what you're...
Yeah. Theoretically, but we also know it's a new profile for hackers to reverse engineer learning data, to take data you think you've anonymized and be able to which is where the tricky part on that deletion comes from.
Yeah, that's correct. And also, a lot of times you need, as an organization, as a company, to allow the individuals, your customers, your consumers, maybe ex-employees, to also be able to submit those requests to delete their data, right? To show us that they actually did it. Another topic that is also interesting is around, we talked about social and entertainment, but a little bit more around medical, right? The medical solutions out there. You could see that the LGBTQ community actually is evolving. We are becoming parents, right? Where people are moving through transitions, etc. Today, you could see that a lot of algorithms that were built in order to enhance the broader people life were not taking under account those changes in the LGBTQ communities. Transgender men's or male or females are not getting the right treatments because the treatment providers are not well educated about it, and also the solutions that were built were not based historically on data, as we mentioned, that is diverse enough and take into account those groups of people that needs also those drugs or medical treatments.
Yeah, that's a crazy tough one too, and it's so diverse, right? All the way from like targeted medical treatment for transitioning or just general health, and then I know I had read something about like even applications around, like, let's say body health. So many of them are like, are you male or female? And the equations underneath that all are different depending on whether you're male or female, not even taking into account, are you, where you might be transitioning, or just the fact that it's binary, or any of that. Even though the equations could be written differently to how you use different input, they're just not. And so, like, basically that means to be a user, I assume you'd have to either pretend you're something different than you are, or game the system, or just not use it. Just say, hey, I can't use this tool, which is just really unfortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. They're geared around fat densities and percentages that are different between the genders, but when you are transitioning, how you identify versus what your body composition currently is doesn't work on the apps.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's right.
Ugh.
That's right.
Yeah.
And also talking about gentrifying language, more natural language. You could see English is quite easy. When you say you do not say if this you or person is a male or female. But I can say that in Hebrew and other languages, it's important. And you could see applications out there that are not taking that under account. Most of them are not. Also, email communications, etc. They would mostly use the more of a male perspective when talking with you or trying to convince you to do something, but they are not taking under account the more of a the capability that someone here is part of the LGBTQ community. And you could see out there some initiatives to like you do localization of products to different languages, also taking into account the fact that you need to use language that is more natural, right? Is less gender oriented language. And you could see, maybe if we are jumping to the future a little bit on this subject, you could see that solutions can be based on AI in a way that when you write an email, same as you have autocorrect, you could get also recommendations of how you write this email in a more natural way and less gender oriented way. So solutions can be out there. The question is how and when, and if somebody will decide to really lead something like that.
Yeah, and in that direction too, it seems like there's a lot of potential in terms of combating cyberbullying, right? Going back to social media, where those types of things could really be used to prevent that, which is it'd probably be very similar technology, actually. Yeah, but I guess the question is when and how and who's going to be motivated to do it.
Yeah, there are projects for anti-bullying, and also some kind of when somebody is going to commit suicide. There are algorithms that can find that path of things that are happening in social media, on this profile or on this user, and actually alert about it, right? So this kind of a subject is how AI can also help with that community.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And when you look at the statistics on especially adolescents in the community, self-harm, suicide attempts, it's quite shocking. And I know the Trevor Project has put a lot of effort in using AI to support the community, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So it's amazing, and you could see how an outcome of good AI for good, can be really a thing. Another topic is around work, right? When it comes to LGBTQ community, you could see that a lot of people out there in different states and countries are unemployed. There are different reasons for that. It could be because of the transition. It could be that I have good friends, for example, that cannot use their diploma anymore because they have different names, and they do not want to show that when it comes to work interviews, and other reasons when it comes to being pushed out from home and cannot really achieve higher education. You could see a lot of LGBTQ people unemployed, and out there, the HR community, as I mentioned, is trying to overcome those challenges and understanding that there is something different here. Those AI solutions that are out there for recruitment do not take it under account. You could see screening of CVs and LinkedIn profiles in a way that was built in order to find keywords and occupations, etc., but are not taking out under account those folks that are a lot of folks that are very passionate and have the professionalism needed and have the background, but cannot really showcase that in a LinkedIn profile or in a CV document. So here you could see some kind of a bias that it's really difficult to overcome, and you need someone, a person, to intervene in order to really maybe say, hey, I will not use AI to recruit more diversified people to my organization.
Oh, it's an interesting one, that one, of course, because there's definitely an AI for good and bad, because yes, AI can absolutely miss things, but we've covered at the beginning, the reason a lot of the AI is biased is because the human beings are biased in the first place, and sometimes the human being is not who you want to be reviewing things because they have their own personal biases. So it's providing the balance of the two. Obviously, humans should always have oversight of the output of algorithms, because just for reassurance and for quality assurance and all of those pieces. But when we're talking about getting rid of bias, that some of it has come in due to the humans in the first place, having humans override it causes its own issues.
That's correct. And you could see also why there are some best practices around blind interviews, right? When first interviews are without camera and maybe only phone interviews, but you can take it also to the next stage and maybe use AI to scramble the voice, so you will not know if it's a male or female or someone that have done transition. So you could see how technology can also help us maybe overcome this bias and try to really listen to a person when they are trying to interview.
Yeah, and it seems like, and I know here in the U.S. in New York, they're coming out with that, AI auditing stuff, which I think will be a really good progression in this arena. And it goes back to being able to identify where the biases even are, right? Because are you going to start asking these questions when you have someone in the employer portal applying for a job? I don't know, but like, how are you actually going to identify and see where those biases exist? Because even I know NLP, if you're reviewing surveys or reviewing resumes rather, usually the AI knows if it's male or female, and the history is probably going to be male, and that's a bold, obvious example where everything, in the LGBT community is even lower population, lower identity of that problem of of that type of swinging bias. And it's going to be really interesting to see how that evolves.
That's correct. And also, for example, there are AI solutions out there that are trying to recruit a person. For example, my friend, she decided to keep her LinkedIn profile, both of them. So she have one of a male and another one of a female.
Oh,
and you could see how the AI solutions out there are approaching more of the male LinkedIn profile.
You're kidding. Oh my goodness.
Why are you surprised?
And actually,
I'm not. I shouldn't be, but I'm mad about it, I think. Sorry, go ahead.
And the salary itself that she's being offered is completely different than the one she's offered when it's the female LinkedIn profile. So it doesn't supposed to surprise us, but you could see how it's so biased when it comes to people that are doing that kind of a transition.
But on the two profiles, actually, I was reading recently that there's been an issue with Facebook where people have got their male profile and their female profile. And because I'm not on Facebook, so I'm going to have to go with what I understand, suggests people you might know, it's inadvertently outing people by suggesting that you might know this person, and it's showing their secondary profile.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this has happened a few times where Facebook has outed somebody by recommending that alternative profile.
Yeah, that's correct. And you could see also how people are trying to check if someone is LGBTQ. They go to a person that they know that is out and trying to find within their friends this other person and guessing whether they are. So the same as that algorithm, friend of a friend, trying to match between same interests, and hey, maybe this person also LGBTQ. You're correct. It's outing people.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you start getting down to that, and Sophie, this is your world more than mine for sure, but like that, because really there's AI auditing and understanding the data that's going in and what we can even accomplish, and then this is really largely about the objectives of the AI, right? And where the risk lies and identifying that and really being able to list it out holistically seems like a behemoth thing, but also incredibly critical.
Yeah, as you said, it's you can't just create algorithms blind to not just what you want them to be used for, but what they can reasonably to be foreseen to be used for. On this one, it's working as intended. It's suggesting people that you seem to have a lot of mutual friends with. It's just there's an inadvertent issue there.
Yeah, actually, when I just started, dealing with data, etc., I've sat in a kind of a meetup when it was an LGBTQ meetup about marketing, etc., how to market to the LGBTQ community. I'm not a marketer, but I listened a little bit, and somebody asked a good question. How do I target an LGBTQ person in Facebook or other social media if I want to market to them? And because it's not written, right? You do not have that kind of a category of hey, this is the ad, and how do I actually segment those people? And the funny thing that he said, like the person, like the one that was in the meetup itself, he said you could check whether this person liked a lot of times Madonna songs, and he's and he's a male, and he's over so and so. So he actually built out those features that will, define this person as LGBTQ, or maybe LGBTQ, or a gay person, and by that you can actually try to target them and show them the ad that you want to show. So it's funny, but this is how the algorithm is doing that, right? They are trying to understand the different likes that you've done or your activities, etc., and by that actually building a profile about you.
And then we start hitting the privacy versus interest things again, because over here and in various states in the US, you are literally not allowed to do that for LGBTQ+. You literally, the second you are identifying someone based on that characterization, or using different data sets to assume, whether it be, Madonna, Judy Garland, any other stereotype you want to come up with.
So is it only, and this is where my ignorance comes into play. So does it only when you're deliberately doing it, or if it's no matter what, right? Yeah. Even if it's a bystander of a product you've built.
There's an issue on this. There was, and the organization got fined. So Grindr, which serves ads, got in trouble for sharing its audiences so that they could have more accurate targeted ads, because the regulator basically said, yeah, you're Grindr. Inherently, you are going to be disclosing sensitive special category data about everybody on it, just inherently. So if you are disclosing anything, no, can't do any targeted ads on your platform, or can't do targeted AdWords back to the advertisers. Can't.
Yeah, share the data with the third party about the sensitive, the personal information of the users. Yeah,
absolutely. So although the advertisers could build the profiles of who they wanted to target the ads, the problem was the second the information goes back, because it does in ad tech, to say this is who's clicked on your, this is who engaged with your ad, you've disclosed somebody's special category data, which you can't do.
Yeah, and actually the fact that somebody downloaded Grindr on their mobile phone actually means something, and sharing that data is already exposing this person to.
Absolutely. So it wasn't anything to do with their sexuality. It's just inherent on the app because of what the app is.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. So we started to talk about employment, right, and HR. Another aspect that it's nice to think about would be also not just recruitment, but also retention. How can technology help me know that this person, like my employee, is happy and he feels part of the organization, and they feel that they are being seen. And for the LGBTQ community, sometimes it's tough because they do not people do not find common ground with people that are different than themselves. So organizations today are really trying to do that by education and by making sure that the organization is open and people can talk about different topics and doing different activities around pride, etc. But how AI can help or be less biased here? This is a good question, because retaining people or person at work is cheaper than finding someone new, right?
Yeah.
Especially if this person is a talent, or they've been with you for such a long time, you want to retain them. So it's another business aspect that I believe that out there startups haven't really tried to nail and find a solution for.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. It's interesting. I haven't seen I have seen some things starting to emerge on building culture, just in general, and not necessarily with this emphasis, but it's kind of, I think, an emerging field. Especially, it's, I think, easier with people working from home, because you have more data based on how they're interacting with the rest of the company, which is, I think, part of that. Like, how much contact are you having? Are you very isolated? Are you I think that type of information becomes really meaningful in terms of who you want to maybe spend more attention on or check in with more, things like that. But yeah, I haven't seen a ton of it, but I think it's emerging a little in general. But yeah.
That's cool. And how can you make it less biased, right? How can you make sure that the LGBTQ community out there, because you do not have enough information about them, they are not well employed, right? You statistically, you do not have all of them in different organizations. How can you base those kind of solutions that you are building on data that you do not have, not diversify enough?
Totally.
Although there are ways you can. We've established privacy can't ask certain questions or can't mandate the answers for certain questions of your workforce. On the other hand, there are things you can do to basically ask the questions and then do some work figuring out what people are and aren't comfortable answering, to then make projections as to how your current culture in your organization is. If you notice basically nobody in your entire organization will admit to being LGBTQ+, you've got a problem. If you've got a large percentage of people identifying in the various aspects of the community, then you know something's going right in your organization for the people to feel comfortable enough to tell you.
Yeah.
And it's again around people, right? It's how we interact and deal with situations. If, for example, I had a role model in like somewhere out there that would show me that, hey, I can get there, I can achieve those, my goals, etc., because they achieved that, it will help me better feel more connected to my goals and my capabilities. Same goes where there is, you could see that when the interviewer is a woman, sometimes, most of the time, the other, like when the interview is also a woman, they will feel more comfortable in that kind of session, right? So same goes if I'm coming to a new company and I would like to see if in their website they show that they have diverse employees and maybe one of the managers or a couple of the managers are part of the LGBTQ community. It will make me feel safer. It will make me feel more open and maybe more connected and wanting to be part of that company organization. So I think that it's also part of how we are as a humans interact with people that are similar to us or part of our community.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, and this is where my mind starts to think about something that I think is kind of critical in here, not only in the LGBTQ lens, but really all minority lens relative to AI tech development, which is like, actually, how do you, because we're not immune to our own blind spots, right? We're blind to what we're not part of. And having diverse people who are actually building these things, or at least at the very least giving input, is super critical, particularly when you're talking about, I think this, right? Well, really all of them, but like when you're talking about the experience of being employed by a company and what to look out for, how you experience the biases, what would be important to even focus on from an AI solution. There needs to be, I think, more emphasis on being inclusive in terms of who's building these things. And even if we can't with building these things, because I know it's hard to find these resources just in general, but at least like how you can put bounds in place of how you can include these different communities in assessing its viability, I think is really interesting to me. And I know there are some AI research groups that are starting to do this, but like, how do you make it more integrated and full and actualized in businesses? I haven't seen a lot of that. So
I can say as an example that a lot of organizations actually utilize ERGs, pride ERGs, in order to provide feedback. either on new products or marketing, or things that the organization communicate outside. So when it comes to the LGBTQ community, they have a kind of their internal group that can provide guidance and feedback before something is out. So you can use your LGBTQ manpower to actually become less biased.
Oh yeah, and I bet that makes them feel also more included, just in general, and less isolated in the company, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've briefly talked about discussing the risks of not just what the model, but how it's utilized. You don't need to be I'm not a data scientist, and I do these risk assessments, with you, Tessa. So having people from all sorts of backgrounds involved in those risk assessments helps you figure out what they are and stops some of that blame.
Yeah, and it's so interesting when we do these, Sophie. I'm so glad you're in your role, because my mind goes to, oh my gosh, I don't know how to reduce or distill down the number of risks, because to me it feels just like behemoth, but critical. So yeah, they're.
And if you identify the risks, well, you're partway to figuring out how to combat them. Most of the issues we've talked about, very rarely have they come from algorithms operating as they should. Mostly it's down to people not thinking in the first place.
Of what the risks even are, is what you,
Yeah. Another item that is also important to think about together is about the future, right? How do we see the future of AI? We talked a little bit about the fact that today a lot of people do not take it under account, and AI solutions are not really out there, and those that are out there maybe do not really works with our privacy and satisfying what we feel that is private for us. So I see a lot of impact for AI solutions in the future for those objectives that we talked about. It can be personal life, it can be entertainment and social, it can be employment and also medical. It can be around suggestions, it can be around finding your community. But I think that the main objective here is how you make it more of a business, right? What is the business case around building that solutions? Because without tying that back to money, organizations and company or products will not really take it under account. What do you think about that?
I completely agree. Let's face it. Data scientists are expensive. Modeling compute is expensive. Yes, it'd be wonderful if everybody did things out of the kindness of the heart. We all know that's not true. If you're going to spend that resource, you're going to want something out of it. That's just how it works.
Yeah, and I think that unfortunately, tackling the bias aspect of it is probably going to gain the most traction when businesses are faced with potential legal fees associated with not being compliant. And I think that's sadly part of the reality, is that because it's expensive to do all that, and it's expensive to audit everything, to do these risk assessments. It's a lot of effort, and it's totally achievable, but I think they have to be motivated to put in the extra effort. And hopefully, it seems like the US is starting to go in the right direction. I think we're, on that front of being held accountable on what our AI is doing. The US is, I think, behind the curve relative to the UK where Sophie is. But that's my opinion, is that it's not really going to start happening until that's
you always need both. Carrots alone don't work. You always need both the carrot and the stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on this with, I think we agree that both carrot and stick are financial.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Mhm.
Either you get fines or you get monetary benefits from doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there is a driver. It's a conversation that wasn't even being had a few years ago. People are becoming aware of bias and its impact and why it's a bad thing other than just a bad word in itself. People are realizing the actual real world implications of it. And as we are talking more about it, hopefully we'll start to sort out some of the data issue, in that as more people are comfortable expressing themselves, we should close some of that data gap so there is the information for the models to work off.
Yeah. I know it's it's an interesting kind of cyclical thing, right? And hopefully we're slowly approaching a more open system where we can both have the information and not have it used against people.
Yeah.
And people feeling safe enough for that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, hopefully we're starting to do that with this podcast. That's why I was so excited to sit here and talk with you, Tomer, because I am passionate about helping people be more informed and interested and driven on this topic. So really appreciate you coming in today and chatting with us.
Thank you. It was great being here and talking about this amazing subject. It's very close to my heart. And I feel that we covered so many topics and talked about the past and the current and also the maybe future that could be positive. I hope. I'm taking it to the positive note.
Absolutely. We have to be optimistic. The future can be better than our past.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today.